Hey, we're back here on the Scaling Secrets podcast with special guest Darius Somekhian from Cloud Dentistry. He is the head of strategic partnerships there. And so Cloud Dentistry is a digital hiring marketplace app for dental practices and professionals to connect work for hire. Darius has been in the dental industry. He has sold a company. He designed the world's, or he designed, invented, and sold over 1 million units of the world's first 99-cent pregnancy test. So Darius has many accomplishments, many cool things to talk about as far as scaling business and so much more. So Darius, glad to be speaking with you.
Thanks so much for having me today.
Great to have you. And so we introduced you a little bit there, but in your own words, what is your current focus and your passion?
My current passion right now on the business world side of things is growing cloud dentistry. We just got our VC funding, so like most startups, we're off and running. My passions are creating systems out of creativity that help bring solutions to efficiencies or driving inbound results for warm leads and such. Networking in general is my biggest passion. I love connecting people. That's always been one of my biggest things.
Nice. And it's easy to forget that, right? How important networking is, especially because there's that lag time, isn't it? You talk to so many people, you go to do the Zoom and the networking and go to the events and just meet people that sometimes it does not pay off for 5, 10 years later or longer. And it's easy to like be short-sighted or impatient and be like, well, what's in it for me? Who's going to help me? But then there's that kind of the reminder of, okay, I need to get myself out there and to just know that it will pay off as long as I kind of keep at it. And then as far as dentists, sometimes there's a few dentists in my town, and it seems like there's kind of like two types, right? There's like the mom and pop and do great and that's okay, and it kind of looks like any other business. But there's like one or two dentists in my area here where I walked in there one time, and there were like four receptionists lined up on the front desk, and they all had headsets and they were all talking. So some of these dentists out there, I'm so impressed with how dialed in, and it's not all dentists, but some of them, just they have the inbound leads figured out, they have the process figured out. And so do you see that as well? This some dentists, like I'm just blown away with the marketing and this the lick smooth process.
There's a lot of marketing companies out there that are trying to sell to dentists, and dentists kind of use a common denominator of saying, how many new leads am I getting? Unfortunately, most of them don't actually track how many new leads they get. Many of them just kind of rely on what the ad company or agency or marketing partner tells them, right? Here's what was clicked through this landing page. This is how many people called this dedicated phone line sort of thing. Execution, I think, is the most important thing. Figuring out how you can actually monetize these relationships. At the end of the day, whether you're networking or whether you're treating patients, you got to figure out how you're going to capture the patient from the phone call and get them into the chair, or how to figure out how to put a channel partner deal together where it's a win-win. And I think that's probably the biggest key when you're putting a deal together on a business-to-business level. You got to make sure it's a win-win. If it's not, you could try easily to try to avoid anything that would not make it a win-win, even exchange as we call it. And it's more sustainable that way too in the long run, because both sides will eventually see the results of it or not. If one side doesn't, it's not going to work out.
That makes a lot of sense, that to look at like the whole funnel, the whole sequence, not just like one metric, not one number, look at how just all that works out. And so as far as cloud dentistry goes, from what I can tell, you're like a kind of like a directory in a way, right? Like you connect the people looking for work, people looking for talent. Is that right? Is that on the right track?
Close. We're the first and pretty much only pure marketplace for HR talent in dentistry. What I mean by marketplace, it's actually there's a technical term behind it in this world. It's a platform where you could essentially message these professionals, not worry about any egregious, greedy buyout fees that are in between with those recruiters and staffing agencies. You don't have to worry about any middleman fee inflating what you're paying the staff that you're trying to hire. And you have full transparency in seeing everything about the staff member that you'd want to see, which you would normally not see through places like Indeed or job posting, staffing agencies and what have you. I could do a demo if you like, but essentially it's the quickest and most reliable way at a fraction of the cost for practices to be able to access messaging dental professionals for temp or permanent work hire.
Wonderful. And so you're mentioning there about some of these alternatives, right? Like you wouldn't want to maybe use Indeed or a Recruiter because of the extra fees. But why would a dental practice not want to use like LinkedIn or like a classified ad or like some like old school way of finding talent?
So I'm a big promoter of using LinkedIn. In fact, I use LinkedIn very often when I have like a scenario where, let's say, I get introduced to an office and the office is in Wyoming, one of the markets that we're not in, and he's looking for a GP. This case actually happened. And I didn't, I wanted to do good by the guy, by the doc. I want to see how it could help. So I said, just try out a 1 month subscription. On the side, I'll go fire off like 5 of our LinkedIn profiles, which are mainly composed of like our advisors and other practice owners we work with closely. And I'll just send the Cloud Dentistry job posting to, as a note to the first connection requests to all the general dentists in Wyoming. I think there happened to be like 700 on LinkedIn, that had title general dentist in Wyoming. Lo and behold, he hired a guy in 3 days. It was great. We didn't build a market out of it, but at least I helped the guy out.
Yeah, and I like the way you think in different multiple ways, right? There's that whole aspect of your referral sources or the people that maybe you don't benefit directly, but it helps out these people in your network and it makes you look good, it makes you feel good, it helps them out, and you never know if that favor will be repaid. And even if it's not, that's okay too. But just like helping out with your network and also like your kind of thought process there of, well, the people are out there, let's just go get them, right? Instead of having like a big like multi-step plan, you're just like, okay, let's keep it simple. LinkedIn and this job title in Wyoming, let's just like figure out who that sort of person is. And so I can tell already that you are a problem solver of sorts. And as far as solving this problem of getting the kind of dental practices with, good talent and staffed up, have there been any difficulties growing it? Because like sometimes there's like a chicken and the egg kind of problem with a marketplace, right? Like if there's not enough on one side, like who's going to go and hire and who's going to go and apply. So what kind of just roadblock did you come across when in building cloud dentistry?
Patrick, that's very insightful, I must say. I'd say like 99% of the people that I talk to about marketplace theorem, they don't understand how you actually have to balance the supply and the demand. But on the surface, it's like rudimentary, right? If you don't have enough offices and you have too many, we call them professionals, job seekers on the app, then the professionals are disintermediate. They'll just check out. There's no jobs for them, right? What we created for the professionals, by the way, and offices can sign up for this too, is free CEs, just so everybody knows out there. You don't necessarily have to join if you're not looking for work or are looking for work. You can just join for the CEs. We have weekly CEs run on Zoom, top-notch KOLs, sexy topics and such. But in answer to your earlier question, how do we avoid disintermediation on both sides of the fence? Well, we're operating in 35 markets. We have an amazing team that keeps a very granular track. Like the old saying, winners keep count. You have to keep track of the numbers and how it's fluctuating. Every market, every week can jump from, let's say, a ratio of 2 hygienists to 1 subscribed office. And we're very conscious about that. So efforts are kind of put forth based on these numbers of how we see the marketplaces tilting so we could get to like an even ratio. We like to see 1 active hygienist on the platform for every subscribed office. And whether that hygienist is actively looking for temp work or permanent work, they're just active. Our average response time in our major, like what we call tier 1 markets, is 12 minutes. You get 95% worth of stale resumes on Indeed. They don't even respond.
That's powerful. That's insightful. Yeah, and I think the lesson I'm getting from your thought process here is that we need to be always on the hunt for like some really good KPIs, right? Like you're saying that the winners kind of keep score and know their numbers, and it's really easy to just be quick about it and say, oh, okay, well, I want the number to be this, right? I want the number of like my monthly users to be this. But you're saying like, well, a really good metric that you're looking for is an active user in your platform per dental office, and then even looking at like the competition and seeing where they fall short, where you say, okay, well, if Indeed has this 95% of job postings are not even like fulfilled or looked at or whatever the problem is, you say, well, how can we avoid that? So that's really powerful in and just always being on the hunt for some of these better metrics and not just having the metrics that make you feel good, because sometimes you hear about this, right? You hear about like there'll be some social platform and they will count like 2-second video views, or they'll count impressions. They'll say, look, we get billions of views, and it's like, well, that makes you feel good, but that is not really helping you solve the problem, and that is not directing you towards like incrementally improving that number. And so that's just kind of abstract and deep to think about in general. And you mentioned in there just this concept of like hiring people, and I'm sure that's kind of like a constant problem, and maybe even one of those problems where it's hard to get a handle on it, right? Because it's like kind of this kind of nebulous thing, right? And the more you like try to make a list or criteria or bullet points, the more of a like confusing mess it becomes. And so with this kind of weird topic of hiring the right people, like what are your thoughts on that? Like what should we be looking for, or what does it take to hire these people that are good, that show up, that are disciplined, that do a great job, that stay, and all these other things? Like what should people be looking for?
So there's a couple ways I want to kind of look at this from various lenses. The CEO of our company, Trey Tipichin, he used to teach macroeconomics at Harvard undergrad. So he's giving me this like economic perspective of what he sees. And it's actually brilliant. I'll share it with y'all. Then COVID hit. There was already a constraint of supply. When I say supply, I mean available number of days and available number of workers in the industry. I think there was about 250,000 hygienists before COVID, and then it like dropped by like 25% in terms of like total number of days they gave, because not all of them said I'm quitting. Many of them said, I'm burned out. I'm going to do part-time clinical, part-time side gig. Or the most classic scenario is I work at 2 offices, 2 days a week, and then I have my Friday off. What Cloud Dentistry has done is something that has never been achieved before. We came in and we unlocked this fractional unit of labor that was not there before. How? Because we were able to allow the hygienists or the other dental assistant and prof types to make their availability by the hour or by the day. Before, they were posting on Indeed saying, I'm available part-time, or I'm available full-time. Or they would tell the staffing agency, I got my Fridays open, right? But now they can say, I'm going to open up my calendar from 10 to 2, from after I drop off little Johnny and when I pick him up from school, and I'm going to charge whatever hourly rate I want. I could even see what the average hourly rates are in the area that are being charged, and I can monetize my free time that way. And you know what? I might open up my mind to a new permanent position that's better than this. Now that's from a numbers standpoint. Our app, to put this in perspective, our app processes about 15,000 bookings a month, but we allow both sides to disintermediate. Like the professional can send the office their phone number and say, give me a call on my cell. They choose to still use the app because of the scheduling feature. It's quick, and it's easy to use. From a psychological standpoint of retention of staff, I noticed that, I've been in the business side of dentistry since 1998. I'm on my 25th plus year doing this. All I've done is just talk to dentists and made friends with them all my life. I've actually set up 3 of them with their wives, no joke. And so I've gotten to like really know them on a deep level and in the thousands. And it's a pleasure, really. I love having such an immersed involvement in dentistry. One thing I noticed though is that it's like the old sort of like cliche adage that dentists weren't taught leadership in school. You ask the faculty why, they say, we don't have time in our curriculum. But the reality is there's other ways they can go and figure out leadership skills, because that's what it really boils down to. If the person that's working for you just kind of doesn't like you, it's not going to work. Whatever you do is not going to work. However much money you pay them, whatever kind of benefits you give them, this and that, it's not going to work. You have to figure out kind of like this like Machiavellian style where they love you and they fear you at the same time. I mean, when I say fear, I don't mean like, oh, you're shivering in the corner because you're yelling at the guy. Unfortunately, many dentists out there, they have some once in a while sort of like temper moods that go off, They're stressed out people, man. I don't blame them. But they go off sometimes in the office, and the dental assistant is like just scar tissued off of that moment, and they'll start looking for work immediately. Dentists will never know that the person is looking for work. They'll just come to them one day and say, I'm really sorry, it's been 7 years I've been with you, but I gotta go. And they won't even tell you why. They won't even tell you the real reason why. You'll be left there wondering for the rest of your life. But the real reason is because you blew up at them that one time. You lacked leadership skills that you could have went and learned on your own. There is such a thing of emotional intelligence, especially when it comes to like actually interacting with the people that work for you. And when you're these, lonely island private practice owners that are just trying to like climb up this treadmill rock climbing and it's not going anywhere, you're just getting burnt out. At some point, you gotta look at yourself and say, I'm doing this wrong. I have to switch up my style. I have to switch up the way I'm communicating with my team. We have a philosophy at Cloud Dentistry. We say that culture trumps strategy. The culture that you have within the company will always be more potent and way more effective than any strategy or any amount of money you pour into it. Because it's the people that work for you that are going to make you. They're going to make you happy and they're going to make you rich.
Wonderful. And I'm getting this feeling that in any kind of problem that you're faced with, you attack it with multiple tools, right? Kind of like when you sit down to eat, you have like a knife and a fork and a spoon. There's not just one way of going about it. And it seems like a lot of a lot of your success seems to be just based on knowing so many stories and just kind of seeing so many of the repeat patterns. And so that way you can kind of like speak to maybe the hidden problems or the problems that people are afraid to talk about, or where maybe even like the solution does not easily present itself, such as in this situation where you say, well, all these dentists, their problem is that there's just this lack of leadership skills, and you tell it in this kind of a story where it's not like you don't just make the statement, you tell the story, so that way ideally if some dentist is watching or listening to this podcast, they're thinking like, man, this guy Darius, where has he been all my life? And so this is wonderful advice that the dentists especially need to kind of get the culture figured out, and then just study up on some of these sort of leadership things. And so maybe if it's possible in the next few minutes here to unpack that, like when people talk about like culture and leadership, it's really easy to get stuck in like the businessy speak, and then like the message doesn't get delivered. So when we're talking about like culture, sometimes people like write a document or figure out like keywords or values. But when if some dentist says, okay, I'm hearing you when you say that there's a lack of good culture in my practice, like what does that mean, and how do they begin to solve that problem?
So first of all, there's a multi-pronged approach to this. Number one, I get it. You're on a lonely island. You don't have to go worry about having your office manager now become your HR manager. I'm not telling you to go build a whole HR department within. But what you can do is try third-party companies that are proven, that are amazing at handling all the HR headaches that you normally have from, calculating and talking about sick days and vacation days with your staff and things like that, right? These things all kind of like add up. The second thing I want to say is that a lot of dentists out there, because of the burnout rate that they've suffered through, they've gotten psychologically in this rut where they feel as if that they're making a mistake, they're not good enough, so much deficiency at hand with a specific situation, and it's because they are scared to try, right? If you don't try, you're not going to know if it's going to work. The other day, I went to Boston to visit our CEO. I was teaching him how to play poker for the first time, and he's such a brilliant guy. He picked it up in an hour. It's incredible. I'm not kidding. He didn't even know what the difference in a straight flush or a full house was. And there was a hand he was involved in, for those poker fans out there to see this as an analogy. And he had put in like $100, which is a lot of money for this size table, by the time the turn card came, which is the card before the final card. And then the final river card comes and he checks. Next guy bets $50. The pot was like $200. He folds his hand. I go to him, why'd you fold? I don't know, I don't think I had him beat. I go, listen, if you don't try, if you don't see the end of the card, there's no way you're going to win. The only way you're going to win is if you see it through. You have to try.
I love that. So we need to try, and it's kind of this whole like self-sabotage concept. It's sometimes difficult to think about because we don't even want to think about it, right? That there's that fear over there, and we don't want to try because trying might mean failure, might mean difficulty, might mean struggle. But then we don't even want to. It's like we're like 2 or 3 levels back, right? We don't want to try. We don't even want to admit that there's the fear on the other side. And so what's the solution there? Is it like just do it, just take a risk, don't think about it, look at the data. Like if there are some dentists out there who's just been doing the same old all this time, and they're stuck, they're struggling, but it's just in that middle spot, right? It's not bad, but it's not good, and they know it could be better, and they need to be maybe trying these new things in their business, in their practice, and they're like, I'm hearing you, I need to try, but if they're stuck, if they're afraid, if they're scared, and they just can't do it, how do they just charge ahead anyway?
You know, that's a golden question. My dentists are scientists at the end of the day. They digest and comprehend numbers better than anything else. So I'll kind of like phrase it this way from a numerical standpoint. Your wisdom and your network is basically your net worth, right? Your wisdom comes from experiences. You don't ever see the old wizard guy in the corner that did not fail 100 times. That guy must have tried 1,000,001 times. That's why he's got all that gray hair. The number of times that you try will add up to that gray hair, hence your wisdom. So keep trying because it's going to add into the wisdom bucket for yourself. And eventually you're going to get better at it. Your instinct is going to get more keen at it too.
Wonderful. So keep trying because that equals the wisdom and experience. And then there's also that component you mentioned of your network and your circle as well. So those two things need to be beefed up, and it requires this kind of constant reinvigorating and constant just getting back to it of building up your network, helping out people, and then helping out yourself. And then also because you are in this whole kind of HR sort of space, or at least the like hiring space, then there's kind of those really important lessons that the people that you hire are really important too, because then that becomes your team, that becomes your support system, and a lot of problems will work themselves up because you hire good people. And so this is kind of a really exciting, motivating conversation for us to have, Darius. And I want to make sure that we have time to talk about a little bit about your own kind of transformation and revolution, right? Like in all of your kind of business adventures, ups and downs, like you said, since 1998, just in all the dental space. Do you have any like fun, scary failures and struggles to share with us? Because that's always we like to hear about, right? Is when you really failed, but you came out of it and it all worked out. So what comes to mind as far as an adventure like that?
Do you want to hear the one about how well, I got a good one for you guys actually. I'll tell you guys the story about how when I was growing my dental supply company, my next door neighbor was a serial killer who happened to be our box cutter, and I didn't know for over 10 years. I'll tell you what happened. So I started selling latex gloves door to door from the trunk of my car in 1998, and the business blossomed into becoming a full-blown dental supply dealership. We had everything from 2x2 gauze to composite material. And we had to upgrade our warehouse by like year 4. So we end up in South Central LA. Here I am, this white kid from prep school showing up at 25 years of age, and I'm putting this like 10,000 square foot warehouse together. And the first day I'm there, the guy, we're trying to plan like how the logistics is going to work. There's the dock gate, there's like the entrance for people that want to do will calls. And I'll never forget, this dude walks up to me, jaundiced looking eyes, like big dude, 6'5", and he says, "Hey man, how about I come over and I cut them boxes for you every day and save you guys the labor?" I was thinking, okay, why not? I don't want to say no to this guy either, because I'm thinking my warehouse guys don't want to cut the corrugated master cases down, because dental offices would receive shipments in the inner boxes. We had to cut down the larger corrugated boxes, and there was a recycling center down the street. So I said, sure. We were there for like 7-8 years, and then one day SWAT team surrounds the whole block. It was like pandemonium, like they closed off the whole street, and I see this guy being taken out of shackles. His house was across the street from the back alley from our warehouse, to put it in context. And he didn't have like a box cutting knife, he had like a machete that he would cut things with. It was kind of, nobody ever joked about him being a killer though, like, because it was normal to see people like that in South Central LA, right? And I look on the TV that night and I see Reginald was his first name. He was dubbed the Grim Sleeper. He would kill black prostitutes was his thing for like all those years. That son of a bitch. And he would just come cut our boxes and go recycle them. I had no idea. Finding out how to recycle the boxes afterwards is a whole different story, but that's my serial killer story for the day.
Exciting. And so what kind of lesson should we take from that? Like that we're just that close to death, or that I mean, what's kind of the moral of that?
I tell you, without jesting at all, I can make a million and one jokes about this, but I'm a big believer that, God gives you everything and a lot of things are in his hands. You have to be very grateful that in certain situations that you come across that a certain amount of faith is in his hands. 100%, no doubt about that. But with that said, I believe that luck comes from where preparation and persistence meet a crossroad, right? If you go with that rule in life, then you will have this sort of like healthy mental balance of knowing that God's behind you with some sort of predetermined life that you have ahead of you. But at the same time, you're in your own decision making mode, and that's going to have direct luck or effect on what you're trying to do.
I love that. Preparation plus persistence. So that luck is just like one ingredient of many, and that when you are lucky, so to speak, whatever that means for you, then take that opportunity because I'm sure that many people in life are lucky, but then just let their chances pass them by, and they don't say, well, there's more than one ingredient to the system, and some people just try more so that they generate more luck. And so that's interesting to think about, just as far as luck being a component of the just all life, along with your faith and your persistence and your preparation and all those other things. And so this has been kind of a deep, insightful conversation. We went all over the map, which is great because we like to be entertaining. And so now that we're kind of in our final moments here, or our final few minutes, I want to make sure that we put in like the sales pitch, so to speak, for Cloud Dentistry, right? So people were blown away, amazed by your advice about business and life and dentistry and even other things. And they say, okay, well, this Darius guy, he seems really smart. And some of these things he mentioned about like the staff and like, being the lonely island, that really resonated with me. So if someone says, let's take the next step, let's see what Darius has to offer, then can you tell us about Cloud Dentistry as well as any other sort of calls to action you think are important?
Sure. So, Cloud Dentistry is a gym membership style subscription offer for offices to get unlimited access and unlimited messaging or booking for working interviews to almost 100,000 professionals in 35 cities. The proof is in the pudding. We've been growing at a very rapid pace the past 7 years. We have over 5,000 offices working with us. The average subscription is ridiculously low. Like we're talking the average subscription is under $100 a month. There's no buyout fee. There's no middleman fee. We're completely just modernizing the way hiring is going. And you could always reach out to me. We do have an onboarding team that handles this, but I'll throw out my information out there, Darius at clouddentistry.com. I would love to do a demo for you and meet you. I'm definitely into meeting all the practices out there. It's been a passion of mine.
Wonderful. Darius at clouddentistry.com. And how does someone know if they are an ideal fit to reach out to you? Like if they're a practice, like what problems should they
Yeah.
have? And then if there's someone looking to get work, should they be looking for?
Yeah, first of all, I'm always open to just chatting about life in dentistry. You ever want to reach out to me as a friend, go ahead. Of course, I'm limited on time, but I'm happy to spark a conversation about any challenges you may be having in practice ownership mainly. I think that if there's anything that I could help with on the HR side and saying like who's the right fit, I always say that practices nowadays they need to have some sort of like backup system in place because when staff gets sick or they, have to take a vacation, remember there's burnout for the staff too. We got to let them have vacation also. It's good to have a nice reliable solution like Cloud Dentistry where come in just get like an annual subscription because we have options for monthly, quarterly, or annually. The annual will be the lowest rate, and you'll have this sort of like insurance policy where you can have like a source to have people come in for when you have God forbid sickness or vacation time out there.
Wonderful. And so, like you said, for any reason, or if you're the kind of person that wants to chat about this dental industry, then reach out there. But then if you're looking to solve some of these hiring problems on either side of the equation, then check out Cloud Dentistry. And this has just been a wonderful conversation. Lots of amazing things to think about, especially I love what you just said there about having that backup plan of just in case the worst goes wrong. And luckily, like, for all you mentioned about like gratitude and optimism, for all the negativity that we could have about the modern day and age, we are living in these amazing times with like fractional work and with Zoom and with internet being everywhere and with everyone being kind of on their mobile devices and internet literate, that it is possible to have these backup plans, and it is possible to solve some of these problems and accomplish some of these things that it was not possible to do even a few years ago. A few years ago, if you had a crisis with your hiring or your employees, you might have been completely screwed. But now there are these alternatives, including clouddentistry.com. And so as we're wrapping up our conversation here, Darius, it's always fun to end on like a quote, moral, or lesson. So does anything come to mind that fits just wrapping up our conversation? Quote, moral, or lesson. What comes to mind? No pressure.
No pressure. I'll go with get busy living or get busy dying.
Okay, Shawshank Redemption, right? That's an
There you
excellent
go.
movie. Yeah, Andy Dufresne. So get
Right.
busy living or get busy dying, and the place to get busy right now is at clouddentistry.com. Darius at clouddentistry.com. Darius, it's been wonderful speaking with you.
That was all mine. Thanks for having me today.
Wonderful.